It's Thanksgiving. Yeah, to you it's Thanksgiving. To me it's Thursday. We're talking Rocky. Hit it. It was 1979. The Knack sang about My Sharona. Alien taught us that in space no one can hear you scream. VC Andrews wrote about Flowers in the Attic, and Rocky Balboa went the distance with the 52% share in TV ratings. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me is a very special guest. It's frequent contributor Josh Allen. Josh, how's it going?
It's going great, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. In fact, you've suggested quite a few topics that I'm actually gonna cover in a few weeks as well. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Oh man, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty excited about this episode.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
I've been watching Rocky for a while now, and I still like it.
that's you know what? That's a good sign. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's funny because you suggested Rocky, and I thought that's perfect. It's just a little outside my window, but at the same time, it's really not because in 1979 they aired Rocky on CBS, and it demolished every other thing. It had literally 52%. So they estimated about 66 million people were watching Rocky on TV that night, which is it's crazy. And it actually occurred I think the day after my birthday, or well, I guess it's 364 days before my birthday, but you know what I mean. But then throughout the 80s as well, they showed Rocky so much. I remember it being on around this time, Thanksgiving through Christmas. And then, of course, Rocky IV is very famous for that final fight between Ivan Drago and Rocky being on Christmas Day. So Rocky and Christmas kind of really go together.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you asked me to be a part of this episode.
Yeah. Well, and I remember I always saw bits and pieces of Rocky. I'd never quite seen the whole thing straight through until probably about 20 years ago. So I spent I'd say probably the first half of my life without seeing the full movie. It was always just bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I just remember loving Rocky. I mean, Sylvester Stallone, you can't go wrong with Sylvester Stallone.
And the music.
You're right. Yeah, Bill Conti's score is just fantastic. I think people to this day still work out to the, dun, 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 dun.
It gets you motivated.
It really does. As soon as you hear that fanfare, you're like, yeah.
When I'm down and depressed, I just turn on some Rocky music and gets me out of my mood.
Yeah, exactly. And it really can do that. It's so uplifting. It really just gets your energies going. And I remember actually playing this in junior high band. Mm-hmm. It was one of those that they brought up. It was going to be like a stand music while the football team was playing. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we ever actually performed it as stand music. I think we ended up doing it as part of our end of the year concert.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Of course, that very, very famous tune by Bill Conti. Most people, when they think about Rocky, they remember him jumping up and down, running up the steps and jumping up and down. And, mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest, visuals. And I forgot that he loses in the first one. He actually technically loses, doesn't he?
Yeah, that was really surprising. The first time I watched this in a long time, I really forgot that he lost.
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally did too. But I actually think it's better I think it works better because I mean, he really, like, he admits himself, he's nowhere near in the same league as
Yeah.
Apollo. And so I'm glad that he lost, but at the same time, it's like I'm glad that he actually went the distance, because nobody ever went the distance with Apollo.
Yeah. It's a very inspiring story.
It really is. But I mean, before we like really start to get into it, what's
Mhm.
your like history or just your general experience with Rocky?
I've always appreciated the Rocky movies and Sylvester Stallone. It's I grew up with them. I grew up with his movies, and he seems like a really nice, down to earth kind of guy.
Yeah.
And his characters that he writes seem very down to earth.
Hmm. I definitely agree with that. Yeah. For me, I think like I said, I remember seeing bits and pieces of it. I actually remember part two more than I remember part one. And I think it's because in my brain I kind of merged them because he does win at the end of part two.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, I kind of just used the ending of that and kind of overlapped it onto the first one.
Yeah. All the movies kind of mesh together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I remember Mr. T for sure. I
yeah.
remember him fighting Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. I do too.
And then of course I remember the very famous Ivan Drago, I must break you,
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, Rocky's just always been there. It feels like I remember just turning on like the TV to like WGN or one of those,
Mhm.
one of those stations, and just like it would be on, like on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon, and they would just be showing it.
Yeah. And whenever it's on TV, I just leave it on and I watch it in the background.
Yeah, same here. Same here.
Yeah.
And now that it's so I was able to see it on HBO Max, and I mean it was great seeing it without commercials. It's been so long
Yeah.
since I've seen it without
Yeah.
commercials. Oh man.
And Netflix kind of spoiled, all the commercials now. We're so used to
Uh-huh.
not having commercials.
Oh, I know. I remember always, I mean, we used to fast forward, like whenever we'd record something, we'd fast
Yeah.
forward, of course. And then with the DVR, we were able to kind of do that too. But for sure, as soon as you started watching Netflix or watching one of the series on it, uh, just all the commercials were edited out. And so it was like, yes. And so then when you'd go back to watch like regular TV, I mean, all of a sudden it was just like, hey, why are you stopping the show for this? I don't want to hear about this dog food,
Yeah. It's this, I guess it's the sign of the times.
Yeah, yeah. People are a little more impatient now that we have internet and high speed.
Yeah.
I remember the dial up, and having to wait, and you'd hear that crazy noise, and then it would take forever to load certain pages, and I mean if there was music on that page, it would take even longer, and I mean
Yeah. It's very annoying.
it was very annoying. And now it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, yeah, we can do
Yeah.
this, yeah. Oh man, but yeah, Rocky was always one of my favorites because it, like you said, it was very inspiring and uplifting. And I know Sylvester Stallone, because I think I read that he wrote this like ridiculously fast.
Yeah. He wrote it in 27 or 28 days.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty
So,
quick. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I think he had the initial treatment or something done in like 3 days, and then it took him,
Yeah.
yeah, the rest of the time to get it done.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. They filmed it in like 27 or 28 days.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
well, no, that's okay. I know the budget was pretty low because they couldn't get a big star to do it. So, it was like I think the only reason he actually sold it was like on the condition that he would star in it.
Yeah, he really wanted to star in it, and
Yeah.
he kept telling the producers and the director that he really wanted to star in this film.
Hmm.
And I guess they finally like, okay, you can star in it. So
You know what? If you keep asking enough, people eventually
yeah,
cave in.
yeah,
That's the moral of the story, kids.
yeah,
But yeah, it's this actually made his career. Like this kind of skyrocketed him into stardom. And it was all because of Rocky.
Yes, it did.
Which is crazy because he was nominated for like best actor and best screenplay at the Academy Awards in 77.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that clip on YouTube, I believe. That
Mm-hmm.
was pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's unbelievable. There's like, I mean, you don't think of Sylvester Stallone as like the greatest actor in the world, but really in this film, he actually shows how good of an actor he is.
Yes.
It's like, to me, it's this one and First Blood, and you really get the real range of Stallone. And I kind of miss that acting Stallone. You know, he kind of went from there, especially with the Rambo sequels. He really went into like just that straight up action hero kind of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Yeah.
did.
But people forget that he can actually act pretty well.
Yeah, he has a range of emotion.
Hmm. And he
Um,
definitely conveys it. You know, I like that he's playing essentially a nobody, you know, that gets his big break. But one of the things you hear a lot, and I think it's more of like an East Coast, maybe it's specific to that area that he was in, but you know, that they call him a bum. You know, you're a bum.
yeah,
They use that
yeah,
all the time.
yeah. I thought that was pretty entertaining during the during the first fight. You know, everybody's yelling, "You're a bum! You're a bum!" So like, that must have been a really big phrase around that time
Yeah,
up in
yeah.
that area.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember saying it growing up. So,
No.
but yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's endured. And so now every time I hear it, whenever I do hear the word bum, I always think of the people yelling, you know, or or Rocky
Yeah.
saying it, or Mickey, because I guess, you know, this has kind of quite a pretty decent cast, well, pretty great cast actually. I mean, it's got Burgess Meredith as Mickey,
Yeah.
the trainer.
Yeah. Hmm.
Of course, we got Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
I mean, Carl Weathers went on to do quite a few things. I mean, most people know him from Predator, Action Jackson. I like that he was in
Yeah.
Action Jackson, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, Burgess Meredith was big as the Penguin in the 1966 Batman. That was like what most, at least people my age, that's what I knew him from.
Yeah. Everybody in the cast really enjoyed that, having Burgess Meredith work on Rocky,
Hmm.
because they were like all gushing that he was such a great guy, and
Yeah.
all in the commentaries that I was watching, they were
Hmm.
all gushing.
Oh,
So
yeah, I bet he seemed like he was pretty cool.
yeah.
I liked him in the other movie that I knew him from was Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah.
He had a little small role in Clash of the Titans as well when Perseus
Mhm.
first wakes up, and you know, after he's been moved by Themis or Thetis, I think.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that was the other thing. I was like, hey, I know him. You know, it's a penguin, and
Yeah.
but you know, that's just, it was like him, and then of course Talia Shire.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, she did a great job as well.
Yeah.
Polly, I always liked Polly.
Yeah.
And I
Polly
remember,
was fun.
yeah, Polly was a fun character.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's something tragic about him. Like he doesn't like his lot in life. He feels like he's just kind of stuck with his sister at his job. He wants to move up. He thinks he can be more of a big shot. You know, if he goes to work for Gazzo,
Yeah.
just all these things, and you really feel for Polly, but you also really feel for Adrian, because at the same
Hmm.
time she's kind of, I don't want to say being repressed, but she's just kind of she's getting the short end of the stick in that living arrangement with Polly, because she does all the cooking, all the cleaning. You know, she basically takes care of him,
Yeah.
but also she's made to feel like she's, you know, a loser essentially.
Yeah.
So that's always a shame. But I mean, the cast is fantastic. Everybody's acting the mess out of it, so much so that it was nominated for was it Best Picture and Best Director.
Yeah. One funny thing is, when Polly was walking home on one of the scenes, he was acting drunk,
Uh-huh.
and actual drunk guy came up to him as they were filming the scene,
Uh-huh.
and noted that, you know, that's not how drunks walk. This is how drunks walk. And so he mentioned that on one of the commentaries, and I thought that was funny.
Nice.
So,
Hey, it worked because I believed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the highest grossing movie of 1976. And it was
Hmm.
actually the second highest grossing movie of 77, just after Star Wars. So that's how popular this movie was. I mean, I think it ended up doing like ridiculous numbers because the budget was 1.1 million. And I know the
Yeah.
studio itself only actually put up 1 million, and the producers had to come up with their own the last 100,000. And so they like mortgaged their houses and stuff just to
Yeah.
get 100,000. Um, but eventually, I mean, it went on to make like $225 million at the worldwide box office. I mean, that's huge numbers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, especially on a $1 million budget. So if you think about, I think just in the US, I think it was like 111 something thousand, or excuse me, 111 million. So that's like an 11,000% increase, on return on profit, or whatever it's called, return on profit, or return on
Yeah.
investment, excuse me. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty, I can't imagine, saying putting up your house
I know,
to
right?
film a movie. So,
I know. I know. That's pretty scary there. Because if it
yeah.
bombs, I mean, well, now you owe a ton of money or your house is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into the plot in just a bit, but just a couple more things I
Okay.
wanted to mention. It has 8 different sequels. So, of course, Rocky
Hmm.
2, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, which we talked about, the big fight on Christmas Day, Rocky 5, which I think is probably my least favorite of the whole series, Rocky Balboa, which is essentially part 6, and then Creed, Creed 2, and Creed 3, which is filming and is going to come out in 2022.
Hmm.
That's a massive series.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think even I think Sylvester Stallone said there were even talks about doing a prequel series with the young Rocky. So
man, this character,
yeah,
started back in 78.
yeah, 76, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, 76.
yeah.
So
And I mean, it really is a phenomenon, so much so that they were even going to make Rocky Balboa a GI Joe,
that's
but
funny.
they ended up it ended up falling through because he had decided to make the Rambo toys. And
Hmm.
I guess there was a clause in there that he couldn't lend his likeness to anything else, and so he ended up not going through with that GI Joe toy. But
Yeah,
I would have loved to have a Rocky Balboa GI Joe. That would have been awesome.
yeah, that would have been cool.
For real.
Yeah.
Oh man. But I guess we can just go ahead and get into it.
Okay.
All right. So I I know that the film itself was inspired by a fight with that Muhammad Ali had with not a really well known guy, Chuck Wepner. Was
Yeah.
and so he no one really. I mean, he had won some fights. People really didn't know him, and he actually knocked down Ali in like the ninth round, and then the next 6 rounds, Muhammad Ali just started like pounding him, but he kept getting up, and so apparently, uh, so Stallone saw it and actually kind of based Rocky off of this guy, and finally there was like 15 seconds until the very end, and he was finally like knocked out. He got a TKO, and so from there. Stallone decided he was going to adapt it so that the guy just goes the distance, and he's still a nobody. He gets his chance, but he ends up going the full fight. But Chuck Wepner actually did sue Sylvester Stallone,
Oh.
and they've settled it out of court. So I don't know what was decided upon,
Mhm.
but I know that he did sue him for this. But yeah, Rocky Balboa. If we're gonna nutshell it, essentially, if we wanted to nutshell it, it's an unknown boxer gets his big break to fight against the heavyweight champion of the world.
That's a good synopsis.
Yeah. 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 I like nutshelling.
Yeah.
So but there's a lot more to it than that, of course. So there's like a romance subplot. There's
Yeah.
the whole, am I worthy subplot.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. But, and like I said, we'll get into it. I like to nutshell before we begin. But the movie kind of
Yeah.
starts with Apollo Creed. He's gonna have like his world championship bout. He decides he's going to hold a title bout there in Philadelphia, but
Hmm.
I guess that his opponent can't compete because he like injured his hand doing something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so he's like decided he's like, okay, I need to get like a last minute. I need to get a replacement. So he kind of has this idea of like, hey, it's it's this big, it's the bicentennial. Let's get like a local boy kind of thing. And so he decides he's going to go with, and he really picks him just because of the name, because his nickname, Rocky Balboa's nickname, was the Italian Stallion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he decides to he's going to fight. What does he say? Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. He said something like, "Sounds like a monster movie."
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. I especially like a sci-fi B movie from the 50s. I get
Yeah.
it. um, but we're like introduced to Rocky, um, who he's kind of I guess he's working as like an enforcer for a bookie and loan shark.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
he's like just a low level, nobody kind of boxer who's a lefty or a southpaw.
yeah. 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 I don't know what the guy's first name is, but they just call him Mr. Gazzo.
Yeah, so yeah. And he's the guy that he's working for. Yeah, I mean, there's that whole scene where he's like talking with him, and he's like,
Yeah.
hey, how come you didn't break that guy's thumb like I told you
Yeah.
to?
One part that I enjoyed about that part is as they were talking, Mr. Gazzo's all tough and everything. He takes out an inhaler and he
Yeah.
takes a little puff of his inhalers.
Well, that's why he's got Rocky to do the enforcing,
Yeah.
the collecting. Yeah, that was definitely something there. But so Rocky also he boxes, but and he's very proud of the fact that his nose has never been broken.
Yeah, yeah, he is. He really likes that fact.
Yeah, I know. Hey,
Yeah.
I don't blame him. I mean, I think I'd pretty much be boasting too if my nose had never been broken.
Yeah. And that comes up quite a bit in the movie.
It sure does. Yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
towards the end, it pays off when he's actually in the fight with Apollo and his nose gets broken.
Yeah.
We're kind of introduced to his neighborhood, and so he knows Polly. He goes into the pet store, and he kind of has a thing for Polly's sister, Adrian.
Mhm.
It's there's all these like so there's like this little romance plot, but it's kind of like just the everyday life of this wannabe boxer, this
Yeah.
guy who squandered all his talent.
Mhm. I like the fact that I guess every day he goes home and he works on another joke to go in and tell her the following morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think he mentions that in
In the
one of the
commentaries.
scenes.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. Well, there was so and this actually has to do with part 4, but I know that there was like about an hour of deleted scenes for Rocky 4. So I'm wondering like what else they cut out on this one here.
Oh man.
Y-
Yeah, they probably cut out a few.
Just a few here and there, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I mean you got to change it. I know that originally in the script Rocky was going to throw the fight at the end because he just decided he didn't like the professional boxing world. Like I guess Mickey was supposed to be like a racist
Yeah.
and real mean or something, and in the end they rewrote it so that to kind of make it better. And really
Yeah.
it's later on that they show him kind of getting a little disgusted. One of the later movies they show him getting disgusted with the professional boxing world, but I'm glad they rewrote it because I don't think it would have played as well.
Yeah, I like the final edit that they have.
Yeah, I do too. I'm very interested though to see the ultimate cut of the Rocky 4. That's coming out. Did
Yeah.
you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard that they took away the robot.
I did hear that.
So
Oh, that's such a
yeah,
bummer. That was like my favorite part as a kid.
I know.
It's 80s
But
robot. You got to have 80s robot.
yeah.
Oh man. Um but yeah, so Rocky he's going through life, he's well, not breaking legs, but he's collecting and enforcing for Gatso. But he gets a
Yeah.
call from a promoter. So he goes to meet with him. He thinks that it's that Apollo Creed, because Apollo Creed is like the one asking for him. He thinks that he's just gonna want a sparring partner.
Yeah.
That's like
Mhm.
what he's envisioning. He's like, oh, okay, he just wants someone to spar with. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. That's fine. And initially, so he's gonna go talk with him, and I like when he's talking with the promoter, and he's like, yeah, I'll spar whatever he wants, no, whenever, that's no big deal. But then the guy says, no, he wants you to fight. We want you to fight Apollo Creed, and he says no. He turns him
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. I was pretty surprised at that.
Me too. Again, that's something else that I just didn't remember, and I think it's just because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen it in such a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so he turns him down because he says, yeah, like he doesn't want to be embarrassed, which I actually kind of like, because then later on in that 2006 Rocky Balboa movie, when he's older,
Hmm.
and they want to put on a fight between him and like the young, the young champion. That's the first thing he says. I'm not looking to get mangled or embarrassed or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice little callback there that I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But like they're gonna pay him like $150,000 or something like that. It was like some amount if he does it. So of course he decides he's gonna train. But I like when they, because all this is going on while he's still trying to live. And so he's walking through the town. He meets with that the little girl Marie. She's like hanging around like the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Again, that's like a great scene. He's like trying to take her under his wing, trying to like say, hey, look, you can't hang out with certain people, because then you're going to get a reputation, a bad
Yeah.
reputation. And so I like that, even though he's like this collector, this enforcer, for this loan shark, he's still concerned about, people's reputation and perceptions of him.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty. I think that was they kept that in the movie because to make the audience feel for Rocky.
Yeah.
So I thought they did a good job in keeping that in the movie. And
Yeah, you're right, because it does make you think of him in a little bit better light, rather than just as just some thug kind of a guy.
because I think he's really talking about himself
Yeah.
and projecting it onto the person that he's walking home with.
Little
So
Marie.
yeah.
No, that's actually a really good point, because you're right. He really is talking more about himself, and so we kind of, as the audience, start to feel more for him, and you're like, well, he's not such a bad guy after all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like that. Then we get, he's kind of really into Adrian as well, who's his friend Paulie's sister. And so, he's like hanging around the pet shop, and he asks her out. And I mean, there's like that very famous scene, of course. And I'm kind of jumping around a bit. I'm sorry, but
Hmm. That's
uh,
all right.
I like that very famous scene of them in the skating rink,
Yeah.
and he like bribes the rink owner to let him skate for a bit,
Yep.
because they're out on like their date essentially.
I think it's very neat that their date is actually on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, yeah.
So I thought that was pretty amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he like gets Paulie, I guess, to kind of set him up.
Yeah.
And Paulie's like, you're gonna go out with him. She's like, no, I'm not going out, or whatever. But eventually she relents, after a lot of coaxing, and even she goes to her room, and you think she's like very upset and mad, which, I mean, I don't blame her. I mean, talk about a blind date. That's kind of
Yeah.
awkward. But he goes to talk to her a little bit, and then she comes out and she's ready to go out. So they go on their date. They go to that, the skating rink. It's like
Yeah.
closed. And he's like, come on,
Yeah.
like just let us. And he's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's Thanksgiving. I want to go home.
Yeah.
And eventually, Rocky bribes him. He's like, all right, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He gives him 10 minutes. But of course, Adrian's the only one actually skating. Rocky's just kind of walking and kind of
Yeah. He's like running.
jogging, yeah, next to
Yeah.
her.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, for sure. So I like that bit. That was just a funny bit.
Mhm.
They end up back at Rocky's place, and they like look at all his stuff and old pictures of him, and they kind of really work well together because she's very smart.
Yeah,
He's definitely more of the brawn, so she's the brains, he's
yeah.
the brawn kind of thing.
They're very believable characters. Well, everybody in the movie is very believable.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
And so it's just they what I think he even says we fill, she fills gap.
yeah, yeah.
And basically what he's saying is that, they're opposites, but like, she's high on one level that he's not, and he's high on one level that she's not. And so like they just mesh very well together because, they just, like he says, they fill each other's gap.
Yeah, and he's explaining that to Polly, and Polly doesn't have a Polly doesn't have a clue what he's talking
That's
about.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Paulie takes things a little too literally, and
Yeah,
he immediately starts to make some
yeah,
derogatory comments.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So they go out on their date. So all that's happening. Meanwhile, while Rocky's trying to get to get in shape and everything, and
Mhm.
Mickey, prior to Rocky's being asked to be to fight Apollo, Mickey has already, who's like the local, I don't know if he's the owner of the gym or if he's just like the local trainer there.
Yeah. I think he's the owner.
I think he's the owner too, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever really specified.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, but anyway, he's like getting rid of Rocky's stuff from the locker. And so Rocky goes to confront him. He's like, well, hey, what's going on? And, hey, like all these years, you never treated me, or you've always treated me crummy, and, you never give me a shot. And why? And basically, he says, because you have the talent to be amazing, but you work for a leg breaker, or as a leg breaker instead, a 2-bit con man or something like that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that scene.
Yeah.
Kind of having Mickey as the father figure to
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then that later on becomes really important because there's like a lot of, I mean, basically he puts Rocky in his place. He's
yeah,
like you have all this talent and you're squandering it. And then later on, after Rocky gets the call, there's that Mickey goes up to his apartment, and as they're, he's like trying to tell him about how he had his shot, because he had the right management and training and, all sorts of things. He's like showing him newspaper clippings of when he was young in his prime. And at this point, we get this completely, I think it was improvised, right?
yeah. It was improvised.
Yeah, we get this monologue by Sylvester Stallone where he basically ignores everything that Mickey's saying, and then he goes off on him like all these years you never did anything for me, you never tried to train me. I mean, just on and on. And then he's like, Mickey turns to leave because, I mean, Mickey's essentially trying, he's like, he knows he's got the big times, and he's like trying to get his way back in the big times.
Yeah.
So it's kind of selfish, his motivations there, but
Hmm.
at the same time, Rocky is also being a little selfish by not accepting, the Mickey's training, because Mickey really could do something with him,
Yeah.
but Rocky's just he just has so much hurt and anguish and anger over all the ways that Mickey's treated him over the years, that he just kind of, as he's walking away, he's like, what, you're too good for my
Yeah.
apartment, and you think my apartment stinks, and all sorts of things like
Yeah.
that. And
And I enjoy the fact that they kind of made up at the end.
yeah,
He walked away, and then Sylvester Stallone's character went down there and
yeah.
kind of shook his hand and made up. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, essentially he thought about it. He's like, well, this again, adding depth to that character, because he could have just
Mhm.
said no, and that would have been the end of it. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you see him like kind of walking back and forth and thinking about it, and then he runs downstairs and he catches up with Mickey, and like you said, he kind of makes amends, and so that's where we get Mickey training him.
Yeah.
Of course, in part two we get all the more advanced training where they work on his footwork and all sorts of things. I like how we get the catch the chickens bit.
Yeah. That was funny. Yeah.
But yeah, so he accepts Mickey as his trainer.
Hmm.
He starts to exercise, he starts to eat right, and this is where we get like a lot of those big montage scenes, of him like running through
Yeah.
different parts of Philly, him just running up the steps, through different shops, things like that. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just a lot of training stuff that's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. And
Yeah.
I think that was the first time they used the Steadicam for those shots in
Yeah,
the
I heard
movie.
that. Yeah, that's really
So
cool. And I mean, of course, Steadicam is like a huge thing now, but at the time it was pretty much unheard of.
yeah,
And so it was brand new. And so using it, of course, when Rocky's running up the steps for that very famous scene, directors were just falling all over it, like, wow, the
yeah,
cinematography and all sorts of
yeah,
things like that. But he, of course, I like how he's like trying to train and he's like tired and sweaty, and Adrian like starts like kissing him and trying
yeah,
to trying to get a little frisky, and he's like no, I'm training, I can't.
yeah. Like, that was humorous.
Yeah, yeah. For sure.
Yeah,
But this is where we get some of the coolest things. And apparently, and I, so Paulie, who works in like a meat packing company or meat packing plant, he allowed Rocky to come in and like, I guess Rocky was talking about him and he was arguing with him about, because Paulie's been trying to go work also as an enforcer for this Godso guy. Sylvester Stallone kind of gets annoyed with him and he like punches
yeah,
the raw meat, the big old carcass, half a carcass of a frozen,
yeah,
frozen just cow side, I guess. Half a
yeah.
cow. And he's like, huh. And so he starts using that basically as his punching bag.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've watched, Sylvester Stallone does not recommend anybody punching meat because it hurts.
I get it. Apparently,
Yeah,
it like flattened out his knuckles.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I was reading as well. And to this day, if he makes a fist, it's like almost completely flat, which is
yeah,
wow. To me, that's crazy.
yeah,
But so he's doing that. They even get like a reporter to come in and watch his whole routine. And
yeah,
I like how Apollo and like his team are talking about, oh yeah, we'll do this for the fight and all sorts of things. They're just getting all, he's looking at various reports and stocks and
yeah,
things like that. And his
yeah,
trainer's watching TV, and he's like, hey, champ, you gotta come look at this. I think this guy's serious, or I think this guy means business. And he's like, yeah, yeah, I mean business too. He
yeah,
basically just blows him off.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's like literally Rocky just, hitting the meat, and he's really trying to get in some kind of shape. So all the running eventually does him good. I think he even does the raw, the egg yolk thing as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
Which still kind of creeps me out a bit. It's like salmonella, man, salmonella.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh man. But he's training. We get this all sorts of these little moments with him and Adrian, Paulie,
mhm,
so much so that we get like our big Christmassy scene where and you can see the little Christmas tree in the background,
yeah,
and Paulie comes in, he's got like he's carrying a wreath on his arm,
mhm,
and
yeah,
he's been drinking a bit, and
yeah,
he starts to provoke Rocky, and I because he walks in while Rocky and Adrian are talking, and they're talking about
yeah,
Paulie, and he's saying, I don't know what he wants from me. I know he wants me to hook him up with Gotso, but I don't. He's not a fighter, so I don't really know what he wants from me. And then that's when we get like one of the most classic scenes in the whole movie, where he's like, I don't want nothing from you, and he like grabs a
yeah,
baseball bat and starts like smashing things.
mhm,
He starts basically kind of insulting Adrian to the point where Rocky like gets up and like grabs him. But he knows Paulie's drunk. He knows Paulie's just like I can't. What does he say? Like I can't do meat no more, or something like that. And
I think so. Yeah,
so he kind of feels bad. So then Rocky goes to check on Adrian, who and I love Adrian because she really stands up for herself.
yeah,
Yeah, she's like, I'm not a loser, and I
mhm,
cook for you and I clean for you, and of course he mentions that she's no longer a virgin, and because of her relationship with Rocky, and then she goes to
mhm,
she goes to the other room to cry. And so Rocky's like, "Are you okay?" And she says, "Hey, do you want a roommate?"
Yeah.
And so she moves in with Rocky, and then they end up getting married in the second film there. But we get this real emotional, intense scene in the middle of like all this buildup of all this buildup for this big fight. Of course, we do the obligatory Rocky goes to on TV and gets weighed, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I like how he's like, "Hey, I just want to say hi to my girlfriend." Oh, you're Adrian. Yeah.
Yeah. This movie has so many memorable scenes in it.
It really does. Yeah, you're
And,
right.
and the movie just goes really fast. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, there's not a slow part in the movie.
Mm-mm.
According, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Everything is pretty relevant because it
Yeah.
either sets up something for later or it really builds character.
Yeah.
We get one of my favorite shots is when so it's like the night before the fight, and Rocky's like in the stadium, in the arena, excuse me, and
Yeah.
it's like he's there and just by the ring, and he just looks up, and the promoter is there, and he's like, "Hey, they got it wrong.
Yeah.
They got this poster wrong. My shorts aren't red with the white stripe; they're white with the red stripe."
Yeah.
Or it might have been backwards. I don't remember, but and the the promoter is basically like, it doesn't really matter. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The crew didn't have enough money to redo that poster, so they just wrote it into the movie that way.
See, and that's awesome because I think that also happened with the skating scene, right?
Yeah. They didn't have enough money for extras, so
Right, and so they rewrote it so that it's just them after hours.
yeah.
Which is smart. I mean, hey, if you got a writer on set and you got to overcome a problem, use them.
Yeah.
But I think also the same thing kind of happened with the robe, didn't it? His robe.
Yeah. The robe was they ordered it and it came. It was like 2 sizes too big.
Oh no!
So they just wrote that in the movie because you'll hear them mention in the movie that it's too big. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I like how this whole movie kind of takes place over the holiday season. So we have the Thanksgiving, we have this
Mhm.
Christmas scene, and then it's New Year's Day, and that's when like the fight, is held on New Year's Day. And I like how he completely comes in dressed as like he's like what is it, George Washington or was
Yeah.
it Uncle Sam or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And and I love, Rocky, he comes out and he finally kind of, I guess, quote unquote, throws a bone to his pal Paulie. He lets him advertise on his on his robe.
Yeah,
And,
that was entertaining.
yeah, that's a great bit where Mickey's like, what are you, a billboard or something like that? And he's like, what do you get out of it? And he says, hey, Paulie gets $3,000 and I get to keep the robe or something like
Yeah.
that. Oh man. But you can tell just the way Apollo's going on. I mean, he's just not really taking the whole thing seriously. It's just a show to him. It's not like a real title bout.
Yeah.
And so he kind of, he starts off, of course, jabbing real quick. And apparently, I think I read that they choreographed this entire thing.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone went up. I think they wrote like 37 left and right hooks, and they like basically made it like a dance, I guess.
Yeah, they like really choreographed it because I guess they were filming and they just couldn't get it right. Like it just wasn't looking real. So they instead, like you said, he went out and wrote it all. Like he literally scripted every single blow.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't even imagine doing that. To me, I would just say the fight begins
Yeah.
and then just let the fight choreographer take over from there. But it wasn't working. So they scripted every single blow, and think it took them like 35 hours or something like that to actually get right. To
I believe
to learn it.
so. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy. Rocky actually knocks down Creed in that first round. So of course the climax is this big, this big title bout. Creed's doing the jabs. Rocky kind of comes back and he knocks Creed down that first round, and he's never been knocked down before. It's like the first time Creed has ever been been knocked down. So now he starts taking the fight a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And they're fighting. Of course, he breaks his nose, but I like how Mickey's like, "Hey, just keep hitting him in the ribs. Don't let him breathe."
Apollo Creed thought this was, just going to be for show, for his benefit, and then Rocky actually started to fight back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. No one told him that it was just a show. He thought it was. Yeah. He thought it was a real fight. Mm-hmm. And so he starts fighting. He gets hit so hard that his eyes start to swell and he has to get cut, to relieve some of the pressure and some of that blood. Apollo, I think he breaks his ribs, or like he starts some bleeding internally. And so he starts having a hard time breathing. But I mean, Apollo is just in a whole nother class, really. So even though he wasn't in like prime shape, he really just had the skill and the experience that Rocky didn't have. Rocky was just kind of a scrapper, basically.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because Rocky just has this like crazy ability to just like take the punches.
Yeah. He just keeps on taking them and keeps on delivering them.
Yeah, exactly. And he keeps getting up, and finally the bell rings. It's like the final round, and of course they're just kind of on each other, kind of locked in each other's arms, and Apollo's like, there ain't gonna be no rematch, and and Rocky's like, I don't want one, I don't want one. It was a split decision. So, of course it was in Creed's favor, so Apollo Creed wins. He remains the heavyweight champion of the world, but it wasn't unanimous. Of course, everybody goes wild. The announcers, the sportscasters, and that's when we get like one of the very famous. Rocky's just like, Adrian.
Yeah, yeah. I like when she finally gets up there, and the first thing that he says is, "Where's your hat?"
Yeah. I do like that too. Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny because earlier in the movie, he like gets her to take off her hat and her glasses, and he like tells her how pretty she is. And Talia Shire, she really is a pretty girl. She's a pretty lady, but they really they do their best to make her to be like real frumpy and just as homely as they can make her to be, And it's funny because he sees past that. He sees her for who she is, and so I really like that. That first comment he makes is, "Hey, where's your hat?"
That always makes me laugh.
Yeah. And they're not, I mean, it's just, and I love that it's really about them, and it's like everybody else is trying to interview him. There are all sorts of announcing and all sorts of glorious, things going on. And he's just like, "I love you." Or she's like, "I love you." And he says, "I love you." And, and that's the movie. And it was nominated for like Academy Awards. It won for Best Picture. So of course in 1977 it won Best Director by John G. Avildsen. Stallone was nominated for Best Actor. Talia Shire was nominated for Best Actress. Of course, Burgess Meredith and Burt Young were both nominated, so they're going up against each other for Best Supporting Actor. Best Screenplay, it won for Best Film Editing. It was nominated for Best Song. I kind of want to know what won that year, because how did that song not win?
I don't know.
And then it was nominated for Best Sound as well. Of course, it's been in all sorts of greatest film lists of all time. It's the Writers Guild of America in 2006 gave him the 78th best screenplay of all time. It's been in AFI's top 10 or 10, for classic American film genres. I mean, just all sorts of awards and accolades. That it's just, it's definitely one that's endured, and the character has gone on to mean so much to so many people.
I think it's a pretty perfect movie.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah.
But it does kind of make me wonder, what would you say would be like your happiest memory or moment of the film?
My favorite moment of the film. There's so many moments that I enjoyed the movie. I probably like the fact that they make these characters really real, and you really feel that these characters are real people.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
I agree. Everything about it screams just everyday life,
yeah,
and you know they're complex. They're they have their problems. They deal with them as best they can. I mean, it's one of those like wow kind of things.
yeah,
That's good. For me, I think, I mean, because I remember it just always being on. I remember watching, you know, especially the end fight. I remember the end fight, but although
yeah,
even though I didn't remember the actual ending of the end fight, but
yeah,
but um, that and like when, of course, the training montage, you know, when he's running up the steps. I mean, that's like
yeah.
classic. But I think for me, the part that like my happiest memory would just be like sitting down at my
Hmm.
grandma's house on a Sunday afternoon and just you know turning on the TV and just catching the ending of Rocky.
That's
Like I do have a
hmm
memory of it. I wish I don't remember exactly when it was. I just remember it was, you know, I was young and just watching the end and you know everybody cheering him, and maybe that's why maybe I was just so young I thought he won, but it's like
yeah.
yeah, you know. But yeah, but now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little
Okay.
segment I like to call Gag Me with the Spoon. So this is where, and this one's hard. This was a really hard one this time.
Yeah,
But this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the movie. So
yeah.
could have been a bit of dialogue we thought was a little cringeworthy, or maybe a scene
Hmm.
we didn't think was acted as well as it could have been. So as a guest, I'll let you go
Yeah.
first. You know, just kind of set it up for us a bit.
Well, my moment is not really anything said, but it's the moment where Mickey spits on the floor of the gym. That's really kind of disgusting. I don't really enjoy looking at that.
Yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah, for me, it's Polly's talking to Adrian, trying to get her out. You know, and he says, and I'm going to try to do my best, Polly, and I can't. I can't
Okay.
do the accent, but I'm going to try to do my best. And he says something like, "I want you out of here instamatically."
Systematically.
Instamatically, what?
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Polly's got the best lines.
Yeah.
Oh man, but you know, I do have to ask. GI Joe, they taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
I think the other half is if you're looking for something to do on a Thanksgiving night, go find a ice skating rink and take somebody ice skating because it might turn into a relationship.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. That's
Yeah.
way better than mine. Mine is just not hitting
Huh.
frozen meat if you don't want your knuckles to be flat.
That's a good one. Oh, I bet another thing in the scene where they're the final fight scene when
Uh-huh.
they're ringing where they're ringing the bell, or
Hmm.
just after they ring the bell, you can see the guy using the steady cam in the crowd.
Oh, really?
He's in a striped sweater, so that's pretty neat.
I haven't seen that. That's funny.
Yeah. So that
Uh,
gives you something to look forward to.
well, yeah, next time I see it, I'm gonna have to look out for him.
Yeah.
It's been so successful. There have been video games. I know in 1987, the Sega Master System had a Rocky video game. Of course, there was games for the Game Boy, GameCube, you know, Xbox, things like that. There was even a novelization. Of course,
Mhm.
a lot of movies tend to have novelizations. This one was written by Rosalind Drexler, except she used a pseudonym.
Mhm.
There's been a Rocky musical. That's how popular it's been. Uh, it
That's
premiered.
amazing.
It actually premiered in Germany in
Mhm.
2012. So that's interesting. Of
Yeah.
course, there's been all sorts of documentaries, and it one of them, the documentary about Chuck Wepner, you know,
Mhm.
who that fight with Muhammad Ali, the Rocky that kind of inspired this. They did
Yeah.
a documentary on him as well as a film called Chuck, and they talk about how he inspired the Rocky films and the Rocky character. There's just been so much, and I mean, Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. You know, 4 out of 4 stars.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's high praise right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, He said that Stallone reminded him of a young Marlon Brando.
Yeah, kind of does.
Yeah, so you think of like movies like On the Waterfront, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. And then of course Bill Conti and his score. It made Billboard's Hot 100 list
Hmm.
in 77. I thought that was cool. It's number 58 on the AFI, AFI, the American Film Institute, on their
Yeah.
100 years, 100 songs. It was number 58. I mean, there's just so much Rocky that
Yeah.
I mean, and when people think of like an underdog type story, a lot of times they'll
Hmm.
think of, this is one of those films that they'll think of.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal movie series.
Yeah, it really is. Oh man. Any final thoughts, Josh?
No, I don't have any final thoughts, but
Okay. All right. Well, then on that note, I'm going to end it by first of all saying thanks for coming on.
you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, it was fun talking with you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you.
And Merry Christmas as well.
Merry Christmas.
And I'm going to end it by saying, it was chaos. Rocky, you went the distance. You went the 15 rounds. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're feeling like Rocky going the distance, leave us a review on iTunes. Not only does it help us reach more people, but you also get a free sticker. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our brand new website, courtesy of my friend and 'tis a podcast elf, Tom Crow. Later, dudes.